So let's move on to the Miami Hurricanes and talk a little bit about their offensive structure and their summer agenda. Brad, you were focused on them maintaining their offensive approach as they replaced Cam Ward with Carson Beck. So how do they get that done, and how do they have success there in Coral Gables?
Yeah, if I'm Shannon Dawson, the play caller there in Coral Gables, I need to make sure Carson Beck is not only confident in my game plan, but he's comfortable with what I'm asking him to do. And I sort of allow him to play without a leash. I think sometimes Mike Bobo at Georgia, where Carson Beck was the quarterback the last 2 years, he sort of played under the system too much, pro style system. Carson Beck might not be that guy, might be a better spread quarterback like Cam Ward was. And what made Cam Ward the top pick in the draft so effective last season was his ability to, sometimes hit his third and fourth reads while extending plays. Now, Beck's not known for his escapability, but I do think he's going to put up better numbers in the ACC than he did last season in the SEC at Georgia. Miami spent a lot of money on resources around Carson Beck to make sure the passing game is still there, too. Y'all got to remember, Miami lost his top 3 or 4 pass catching targets last season and then did a great job of replacing some of those guys, especially getting Marion from BYU post spring. So Beck has weapons around him, but it's up to Shannon Dawson to make sure he's the perfect fit within this scheme and he's comfortable going through these progressions and reads.
Brad, you said Shannon Dawson. The first thing I hear when you say Shannon Dawson is air raid.
Yeah.
Get the ball up in the air, throw it around the yard, play grass basketball, speed and space. I don't think that's the best skill set or how you want Carson Beck to play. I think Carson Beck, when he's under control and he understands where all his reads are, I think that's the best player that you're going to get. And when Miami has ran the ball last year and they didn't ask Cam Ward to play hero ball, I thought their offense and their game plan was more effective. Yeah. And when you are Shannon Dawson and you're throwing the ball around 40 times a game, what happens is your defense does not get time to rest. You don't build on wearing down a team and physically just putting your will and making your opponent submit. And I think the way that Miami is building themselves and the way that when you look at the roster and how they're currently constructed, like you don't go out and get Shamar Brown, a running back, to come in and throw the ball around. You don't get Alex Ballman, the transfer portal from Tulane, which I believe was one of the better blocking tight ends to throw the ball around. I think when you can
don't let Isaiah Horton take more money to go to the SEC in Alabama.
Well, you do that. You do that with the understanding that we threw the ball around for a ton. We had the number 1 overall quarterback taken, Cam Ward, the best player in college football last year. He didn't win the Heisman, but the first overall pick, and you still didn't get to the college football playoffs. So at the end of the day, you have to self-scout and research yourself and say, what's the best formula for us in the ACC? What's the best formula to get to the end of the season healthy, our team playing with like a well-oiled machine, being able to run the ball to cancel out the time, not allowing our head coach to make some mistakes that we've seen him make by slowing the game down. The more opportunities that you give your opponent, the less the chance gets for your wing value to go up. And I think they're set up perfectly with a veteran quarterback to understand I just need to manage games. And when I'm asked to win games, I can put the cape on my shoulder with those young, talented freshman receivers. Malachi Tony's one of them, in order to come out with the victory.
I feel like the way you're talking about Carson Beck is similar to how you talked about Drew Aller in Penn State, like be a game manager, but also put that cape on when we need you. But so as long as he goes and he plays well, that's as far as Miami's going to go. So I wanted to ask Brad actually. They recently landed 5-star offensive lineman Jackson Cantwell. For Hurricanes fans, sorry, he's not there yet. So dive into the offensive line. I mean, Alex Mirabal, one of the best offensive line coaches in America. How good is that going to be? How good is that group going to be? And also, can they keep Beck upright?
Yeah, I spoke to a source, Tom, close to the program in Miami a couple of weeks ago during my spring phone cycle. And he told me that this is the best offensive line Miami's had, certainly in Mario Cristobal's tenure, but maybe in the last decade. A couple of first rounders, up there up front expected the next couple of drafts. You got the Brockemeyer transfer from TCU. The Hurricanes are set up to assist Carson Beck in this new look offense with all these new weapons. And as Smoke pointed out, I mean, Mark Fletcher's back in the running back. They got a couple other ball carriers back there who are veteran guys. If there is a balanced attack, I think that would better suit Miami than what they had last year, where, as we mentioned, Cam Ward was forced to play hero ball at times because the defense gave up so many big plays, so many chunks, and just did not get enough takeaways late in games. Now, the big question for me with Carson Beck and this offensive line is not only do you have to maintain possession, but you've got to swat the turnover bug. Carson Beck was one of the SEC's leaders in picks last year. That can't happen at Miami if the Canes expect to win 10-plus games and get to the expanded playoff.
I just wanted to add real quick on that was just because you're talking about the offensive lineman, just a name to know, S.J. Alufatuli, one of the top centers guards in America. I think he's probably going to play center there. But that kid is special, and he's going to be a guy that plays early for the Canes. So Miami fans get excited about that kid, one of the top overall players in the country.
Well, Brad, you touched on it. The more Carson Beck threw the ball, like you saw him make bad decisions. And that's in every gunslinging quarterback and every quarterback. As an offensive coordinator, you have to know the limitations of your players. And once you say, you know what, his hit rate is 35 throws.
Yeah.
Once he gets to 35 throws, everything from there are questionable decisions. And that's all great quarterbacks. You have to get through those bad throws in order for you to now understand who you are as a player and who you could be as in terms of being a playmaker. If you look in the NFL, you got Patrick Mahomes. Patrick had to go through that same thing. Josh Allen had to go through the same thing. Lamar Jackson, they're all going through the same cycle of understanding how to play winning football. And as talented as quarterbacks are, one of the biggest things that when you're an offensive coordinator, Brad, that you do when you fall in love with a talent, say Carson Beck, is to go out there and say, you know what, let's try to get him to win the Heisman. And then you start putting bad plays out there.
That would be a horrible
and
recipe.
you're giving more opportunities for the other team to get the ball back.
Yeah.
But again, playing complementary football has always won. As much as we saw, and I'd go back to the NFL model, Josh Allen winning the MVP last year for the Buffalo Bills. That wasn't his best statistical year.
Yeah.
But he managed the game all the way to when he was needed in the playoffs, fourth quarter, later on during the season, where I can now run the ball and take more hits and be a playmaker instead of starting the season out that way and putting myself in harm's way. But again, that offensive line, like you said, sturdy. Tight end, Alex Ballman, that they got in the transfer portal, one of the best blocking tight ends. You got a 1-2 combination of Brown and Fletcher Jr. in the running of football in a watered-down league. That's the ACC, and you only have Clemson to say, you know what? That's a team that we got to go get. And at the end of the day, the young players on Miami got to show up as well, too. Because if you studied them last year, you saw a bunch of old guys and veteran guys just getting worn down. And when you have an injury there, who's going to be the young guy up? So for the guy that has all the intel, for all the young guys that's coming in, and we're looking around, there's always a young name that the Hurricane Nation is always saying, you know what, we need a guy. So we're not relying on spending $2 or $3 million in the cap that we have to manage. So who's that young guy, Tom, that's going to be the buzz in October?
I'm gonna stick with 2024 signee like I had with McClellan in Oregon, but I'm gonna go with Marquise Lightfoot. He's an edge rusher, a guy that I know Andrew Ivins, our director of scouting, Cooper Patagna like a lot. We saw him in San Antonio at the All-American Bowl. This kid is a guy who he saw action in 6 games. I'm not sure that he registered a stat at all, but this is a guy that I think is going to absolutely burst on the scene in year 2. He's got this ferocious, violent temperament, great kid off the field, but a kid that's just got a tremendous motor. He's long, he's athletic. There's a lot to like about him. I expect him to play a ton, and I expect him to make a lot of plays if given the opportunity, like I think he will.
And the beauty behind that, Brad, and I'm glad you touched on the defensive lineman and edge player.
Yeah,
you can't have enough of those guys on the football field that's going to help in your rotation. So your front line guys, I'm always talking about when you defensive linemen, who's 5, 6, 7, and 8. Because who 5, 6, 7, and 8 is going to tell me and be a determining factor of what type of ball you're going to be playing in November. Because if you wear those front line guys down and they take a beating, they have 300-pounders on them all day, punching them, slapping them down to the ground, taking on double teams, which could be 700 pounds. I don't care how well conditioned you are as an athlete. After a period of time, the wear and tear adds up. And the longer that you go throughout the season and you're playing 70% of the reps, when it comes to playoff time, end of the season time when you're supposed to be well-oiled and energized, your guy Lightfoot is going to be the guy that's going to say, you know
100%.
what? He gave our edge guys enough rest without a drop-off in play to have us ready at the end of the season to play good, physical, winning football when it counts.